Please like and subscribe.
When the wind blows across the vast plain, it carries with it screams. Screams of love and fear, whispers of those who are gone forever. The gaze is lost in the sunsets, where the scorched grass becomes the ashes of the past. Here, among the golden fields of Texas, stands the Harper Ranch, the legacy of Conrad Harper, the man who was dubbed the tamer of the wildland. He conquered this land with force and iron, leaving behind him scars and marks in the hearts of those who lived near him. Samuel Harper is his son, a young man with dark eyes and a head full of books. He has grown up amidst strict rules and silent secrets. In the house serves a girl whose eyes seem to reflect the night sky. She comes from the Comanche tribe. Her name is Lana, but to many she is but a shadow that slips behind the walls. Her name is rarely spoken aloud. A view beyond the fence. Samuel Harper has lived between two worlds since childhood. On the outside, he was the son of a wealthy landowner, the future master of a vast Texas ranch, surrounded by rough laborers and clear-cut rules. But inside, deep in his soul, he was very different. His delicate, sensitive nature sought solace not in fists and orders, but in the books, philosophy, and novels that he secretly devoured in his room. He dreamed of a world where words are more important than weapons, where feelings are not a weakness, but a power that can change destinies. Early in the morning, when the sun was just beginning to color the prairie in delicate golden-pink tones, Samuel walked outside and spotted her Lana. She was walking toward the stables quietly, as if she were part of the land itself, the prairie grass, the wind, and the light of dawn. Her dark hair fell to her shoulders, swaying slightly in the morning breeze. Her lips whispered words in the Comanche language, ancient, mysterious, and almost magical. Though he didn't understand the meaning, the melody of those sounds sounded like a spell, giving him peace and hope. Lana fed the horses with such tenderness that each animal seemed to feel her care and trust without abandon. She gently stroked their manes, softly calling them by name, names that sounded like the music of the wind that blew across the plains. In that moment, Samuel saw her not just as a maid, but as part of a living world that was so close to him and yet so foreign. Suddenly their gazes met, and time seemed to stand still. In her dark, deep eyes, Samuel saw a universe of pain and power that could not be explained in words. She looked at him without fear or restraint, but with a wisdom that hurt more than any words could. It was the look of a man whose heart had been hardened by cruelty and betrayal, but who still knew how to love and hope. But already waiting in the house was his father's stern voice.
"Don't you dare look at her. She is nothing."
Those words fell upon him like a cold lash, making his heart clench with powerlessness, shame, and inner conflict. Every time Conrad Harper spoke those words, Samuel felt his world crumbling and the choices becoming more difficult. But that night changed everything. As the house fell into slumber, with only the stars twinkling in the darkness, Samuel quietly walked outside with a book, a shabby volume with yellowed pages. He found Lana at the stables, squatting, watching the horses. She'd never learned to read before, but her eyes were wide with a genuine thirst for knowledge and an eagerness to understand this new world. Under the flickering light of the lamp, Samuel carefully showed her the letters, guiding her through the lines and explaining each word. Lana repeated after him, her voice timid at first, but becoming more confident each time. Each new word was like a bridge between their worlds, the world of brute force and prejudice, and the world of quiet hope and knowledge. In this secret intimacy, in the silence of the night, their souls began to find each other. Samuel felt for the first time that there was something more important than rules and conventions, a real connection, as sincere and fragile as the morning light on the prairie. She became a symbol to him that it was possible to believe in the best, despite everything. Flowers under moonlight, weeks passed. Day by day, like a silent river, their secret meetings became more and more meaningful, despite the shadow hanging over their relationship. Lana and Samuel tried to steal away every moment they spent together, as if afraid that their world was about to shatter. Their small stable had become a sanctuary, a quiet corner where they could forget the harsh laws of the ranch and the things that separated them forever. Lana slowly opened up, like a rare flower unfolding under the moonlight. Her voice was quiet but heartfelt as she talked about her tribe, the Comanches, whose lives had always been tied to the vast expanse of prairie, the winds and rhythms of nature. She spoke of how their homes were destroyed by raiders, of the anger that burned everything to the ground, of the tears that poured unceasingly.
Some of my people were killed. Some were sold into slavery.
Her words shook as if from a cold wind.
And since then, I have been part of a wind that cannot be held back. I am a shadow of the past, lost between worlds.
Samuel listened with bated breath. In her voice he heard not only the bitterness of loss, but a strength that could not be broken. There was a sadness in her story, but also an unconquerable spirit that delighted and frightened him at the same time. He could not look away from her eyes, deep as the night sky, which reflected the entire history of her people. One day he dared to take her hand in his for the first time. It was a light, timid touch, but it warmed them both with a warmth stronger than any sunset sun. There was a tenderness in that touch that words could not convey. Their fingers intertwined, and time stood still for a moment, as if the entire prairie had frozen to give them that moment. One night, when a terrible storm was brewing over the prairie, thunder ripping through the darkness and lightning seeming to cut the sky apart, they took refuge in the stable. The sounds of nature, the rumble of thunder, the clang of twigs, the drumming of rain melded with their breathing to create a strange symphony. In this chaos, amidst the whistling of the wind and the pounding of drops on the roof, Samuel kissed Lana for the first time. The kiss was quiet, almost timid, but it burned with a passion that broke through fears and prejudices. Afterward, he spoke to her about the future, about how they could build a new world if only they were together.
"I'll take you away from here.
He whispered, looking into her eyes.
We'll go to the mountains of Montana. There, no one will judge us. It will be just our home there. Just us. Free and together."
Lana listened and smiled, a bright, fragile smile that held both hope and fear. Her eyes shone with moonlight, reflecting both dreams and pain. She was afraid to believe, afraid to let go of the past, but there was a flame in her heart that gave her the strength to go forward. The night was filled with secrets and promises. The wind gently ruffled Lana's hair, and the stars in the sky seemed especially bright, as if sending blessings to their dreams. Sometimes hope is stronger than reason, and blinder, bloodstain. In the Harper household, secrets rarely remained hidden. The land here breathed rumors, and even the faintest whisper could spread like a flame on the dry prairie. One day, at dusk, one of the workers, walking by, happened to see Samuel leaving Lana's room. This simple episode instantly became fuel for gossip that quickly spread through the ranch, like a fire devouring dry grass. Conrad Harper, Samuel's father, was a man of iron will and stern convictions. His world was divided into black and white, strength and weakness, blood and ancestry. For him, there was only one truth: power and order maintained by cruelty and fear. When he heard of his son's liaison with a Comanche girl, he felt not just rage, but a deep insult, a challenge to the family honor he guarded above all else. The day of punishment came, a day that would forever leave a bloody mark in the memory of all who witnessed it. Conrad ordered all the ranch workers to assemble in the center of the yard. The sun was high, scorching the earth mercilessly, and the air was saturated with tense anticipation. Lana was tied to a pole, put on display for all to see. Her skin, white as porcelain, seemed even more vulnerable in the blazing sun, but her eyes burned with a defiant fire. She was not a slave to be broken, but a warrior whose spirit could not be broken. The lash whipped across her back with hardness, leaving bright red marks, bloodstains that spread across her body like shadows of the past that wouldn't let her go now. Each touch of pain sliced through the silence, evoking mixed feelings in the onlookers: fear, disgust, and horror. But Lana stood straight, with a proud posture, not making a sound, as if summoning Conrad himself to the fight with a look. Samuel couldn't look any further. His heart was tearing apart, and anger flared in his chest with fire. He lunged forward, trying to protect Lana, but was met with his father's cold strength. The blow was sharp and sudden. Conrad pushed his son so hard that he fell to the stony ground, hitting his back and shoulder. The pain was physical, but even sharper was the pain of betrayal and powerlessness. His body lay on the dusty ground, but his thoughts raced onward, to Lana, to their dreams, to a hope that now seemed almost impossible. That night, as the house fell into silence and darkness, Samuel made a fateful decision. He quietly, almost furtively, left the house and headed for the stables. There stood his best horse, fast, strong, and faithful. Without further ado, he saddled her, and beside her, Lana, with her back covered in blood, was barely on her feet. Their flight was desperate. The wind blew in their faces, the prairie seemed endless, but every moment was filled with fear and hope. They raced through the night, under the twinkling stars and moonlight, believing they could find freedom. But freedom was short-lived. 2 days later they were overtaken by Conrad's men with hunting spears and cold stares. Lana could no longer walk. The blood slowly trickled down her legs, staining the ground beneath her hooves scarlet. Her strength was waning, each step harder and harder to take. She was returned to the Harper house, where the walls held not only family history, but bitterness, fear, and hatred. Lana was locked in one of the rooms, cold and empty, devoid of light and hope. Samuel, on the other hand, was imprisoned in a dark chamber where only silence was his companion and his thoughts his prisoners. The silence of the prairie grew even louder. Every whisper of wind, every rustle of grass echoed in their hearts, reminding them of lost love and broken dreams. "It's too late, son." There was a heavy, icy silence in the Harper house, the kind of silence that makes your breath catch and your heart freeze in anticipation. The walls seemed to absorb every word and every movement, becoming mute witnesses to the fateful moment. In the center of the room, between the shadows and the darkness, stood father and son, two worlds separated by an unbridgeable chasm. Conrad Harper, a man with an iron grip and a will hardened by years of struggle for power and influence, looked at Samuel with unwavering sternness. His eyes were as cold as the ice of a Texas winter, merciless and without mercy. He spoke evenly, almost without emotion, but each word sounded like a sentence, echoing through the room.
You've destroyed everything I've spent years building. All my efforts, all my labor, for what? For an empty dream that only dishonors the Harper name. You should apologize. Marry a girl from our circle, someone who's right for our family, and forget this whole thing like a bad dream. Otherwise, you'll lose everything. Your honor, your family, your inheritance, your name.
Samuel lowered his eyes to the floor. A storm was raging inside him that could not be stopped. His heart was being torn apart. His love for Lana clashed with his debts to his family and the world he'd known since childhood. She was pregnant, living proof that the choice had been made and there was no turning back. Contradictions flared in the young man's soul, the desire to protect the one he loved and the fear of destroying everything he held dear. Every day his father's voice grew louder and his words heavier. He heard them in every look, in every whisper of servants and indifferent friends. Samuel remained silent, as if afraid the words would destroy what was still inside. The nights had become a trial. In the dark room, under the weight of unspoken words and inevitable decisions, he was losing himself. His thoughts tangled between a future that seemed unattainable and a past that wouldn't let go. He felt like a prisoner, not only of home, but of his own fears, doubts, and expectations. At the same time, Lana was taken away in secret. Under cover of night, she was taken far from the Harper home, to a place where harsh stares and cruel words could not find her. Among the people of her tribe, in the shadows of the mountains and sands, her life became a struggle for survival. There she was alone, unsupported, with a hope that melted away with each passing day. Samuel remained captive to his choices and circumstances. He lost not only his love, but also his freedom, the freedom to live by his own rules and dreams. His soul became as empty as a lifeless prairie landscape, no light, no shadow, only coldness and hopelessness. He chose something in between, and between light and darkness there is only emptiness, ashes and snow. It had been a year since Lana had disappeared from Samuel's life and ranch. Time seemed to stretch on forever, but there was an ache in the young man's heart that never faded. The house that had once seemed a fortress to him had become a cage. The walls whispered his name, and the silence crushed him like a heavy stone. The nights were filled with nightmares, the sound of lashes, the sound of tearing leather, screams and whispers like the call of long-lost hope. He often found himself in a dark room where Lana's image flickered in the corners of his memory, dark eyes filled with pain and strength. Once, among the dust and forgotten things, he came across her handkerchief, the same one he had given her at the dawn of their secret meetings. With trembling hands, he took it in his palms and felt as if he were holding her again, alive and real. Unable to bear the emptiness of his soul any longer, he abandoned everything, leaving his home, his wealth, and his name, and set out to find her. The prairie, vast and merciless, greets him with the cold of the wind and the rustle of scorched grass. He walks forward to an abandoned cabin, the only trace of her life here. The walls of the cabin are covered in charcoal inscriptions, words and symbols written in Lana's hand, and in the middle of them is his name, burned in like a brand. In towns and villages, Samuel hears whispers and rumors.
She gave birth to a dead baby and disappeared.
No one knows where she is now.
Each word is a cold blow that leaves a deep wound in his soul. Without stopping, he climbs up into the mountains, where snow thickly covers the traces of the past. In the blizzard, clenching his hands into fists, he finds her body, frozen, breathless, with a small doll clutched tightly to his chest. Kneeling down beside her, he whispers softly,
Lana, I looked for you in every sunset, in every wind. You were the light that warmed my soul when everything around me turned dark. I promised you a home, freedom, a life without fear. But I couldn't. I couldn't protect you or our child.
He touches her cold hand, then shifts his gaze to the doll in her arms.
You were our future, little one. You are the hope that was never born. I wanted to teach you everything she taught me. Love, courage, faith. I'm sorry we never got to see the dawn together.
Tears mix with the snow, dripping onto the ground where the prairie has taken their dreams once again. The wind picks up, bringing with it soft cries and light female laughter that dissolve into the vast sky. Samuel is left alone, with a memory and a bitterness that neither rain nor snow will wash away. When the prairie weeps, Samuel stood by the riverbank where the water gurgled softly, as if the prairie itself were weeping with him. He held the simple wooden cross he'd placed on Lana's grave. Her image remained with him, alive and tender despite the cold and time. He had given up his inheritance, his wealth, and his family fortune, everything that had once seemed to be his life's purpose. The Harper home had become a void, alien and cold, from which he had left forever. His life now belonged to others, those who had once been forgotten, rejected, but who still knew how to hold their heads high. In a small Indian settlement, Samuel became a teacher, a mercenary who taught the children to read and write, opening worlds they had never dreamed of. But he also learned from them to understand the wind, the songs of the land, and the power that lurks in silence. One evening, as the sun was slowly sinking below the horizon, a woman's light laughter echoed across the prairie. He froze, listening. The voice seemed familiar, almost forgotten. The wind picked up, touching the grass and trees, as if whispering words that had not been spoken aloud. Samuel looked up to where the sky met the prairie and said quietly,
I taught her to read, and she taught me to cry.
This story is not just a story about loss and pain, but about how love and memory can live on in our hearts no matter what. Thank you for listening to this story with us. I hope it touched your heart as much as it touched ours. If you felt its depth, please give it a like and subscribe. It will help us create more touching and sincere stories for you. I will be very happy to hear your thoughts and impressions in the comments. Share them. We value your opinion. See you soon, and may there always be room for light in your hearts, even in the most difficult times.